images. And I just want to go ahead and jump right in, and we'll take a look at the images that we have. So I'm going to pull up my screen here, and we'll take them one at a time. What I have here is I have your image in the raw format that you sent me, and then I have your image edited. And then what I did was I took each one of your edited images, and I applied a few little adjustments of how I would possibly adjust that edited image. And then I also have an image that I edited from your raw image, start to finish, just kind of my take on the image, so that we can kind of go over those four. So I figure what we'll do is we'll go through each image, and first just kind of talk about the image as it is, the image itself, how it was shot, and then kind of go through the different processes of the editing. So for this first image, let me go ahead and pull up the raw image. I love this image. This image, I had a lot of fun playing around and editing with this image. I loved your take on the image. I think that these are kind of my favorite types of images, the interaction that's captured here between the two of them. And you can see that love and that excitement, and this kind of image means a lot more, I think, to the viewer than just an image if they had just been kind of looking at the camera. So this is definitely my favorite type of image to work with. The location is beautiful, looks just like locations that I like to shoot at around here. The light pole stuff in the back, there's nothing you can do about that, and I end up having to take that out of a lot of images as well. But just looking at the grass and the light, and it looks great. I think that I like the composition choice here, having them on the farther side of the image, and you kind of have a little bit more of the grass to the left of them. So these are all things that really kind of stand out to me about the image itself. Suggestions on the actual image itself, apart from any editing. Really nothing too extreme here. I noticed it says that you were shooting with your 85, I think it was your 1.8, and you were shooting on 3.5. I would probably have gone a little bit lower when I'm shooting with that lens. I would probably be shooting around maybe 2.0 or 2.2 f-stop on a shot like this, and maybe move them a little bit closer from the grass to kind of try to have that a little bit blurred as well. But even that, is a minor thing. I don't think that having shot it at 3.5 took too much away from it. But just looking at the settings, I can tell you I would have probably been around a 2 or 2.2. The only other thing I would see composition-wise is I would probably have moved them a little bit. I would keep them, as I said, in this side of the frame, and I like the grass to the side of them. But the grass that's directly to the little girl, I guess our left, her right shoulder, I would probably move them a little bit further away from there, maybe a little bit closer to you or a little bit more to the right, so it wasn't so close to the subjects, just so that it's not anything that would be a distraction. So those would really be my comments on the image itself, and this is looking at the raw image. I'm going to go ahead now and pull up your edit, which is right here. Okay, and I do love the warmth. I mean, it gave it a totally different feel. The biggest thing I would change here, though, I love the warmth on the background. On her face, though, I think is where it gets a little bit, maybe a little bit too much saturated with the yellow and the orange. So I would have wanted to take that down a bit. I do love the high contrast, but I would maybe tone it down a little bit again, maybe in the back by the trees and kind of on their faces. The only other thing I really noticed about the edit, and this is nothing that you've done to it to edit, but in the actual image itself, there's a lot of things that would be distractions, a lot of different colors that would be competing here within the grass and the weeds. So in the editing process, I would probably, which I'll show you on the image that I edited, that's something that I would even out, and I'll kind of explain how I would do that, and maybe soften the grass behind so that that's not anything that's a distraction that's kind of competing with the sharpness of the subjects here. So what I did was I took your edited image and I put it into Lightroom, and I just did some minor things just to kind of give you an idea. And these would be some adjustments that I did. in Lightroom, so you can kind of see, kind of like what I was saying. I kept the warmth, but I would maybe take it down a little bit so that it wasn't so much on the faces. What I did was I actually wrote down everything I did in Lightroom. I wrote down everything I did as far as whether it was in Lightroom or when I did my own edits. When I edit an image, I tend to kind of jump around. I do a lot of different things. I do a lot of trial and error. I'll try something and see if I like it or don't like it, and then I'll go on to something else. So I figured, that would be such a long process that it'd be better off I just kind of go through it, do my jumping around, and then kind of let you know what I ended up deciding on what I would do. So for this one, when I put it into Lightroom, I decreased the contrast about 36 points. So I like the high contrast. I kept it, if you compare that to the original raw image, but I just took it down a little bit because I think that was part of what was giving her some of those, like the lines in the face, and I wanted to just kind of soften that a little bit. To make up for some of that decreased contrast, I did up the blacks in the image by about 10. I took the saturation down just a little bit. I did a slight orange shift to yellow to kind of eliminate a little bit of that yellow but still keep the warmth. But I did also go through and decrease some orange saturation. And I increased some magenta saturation because I wanted to kind of pop some of that color that was in the heart on her hat and on her shoes. And I increased the luminance in the red, orange, and yellow to kind of brighten up those colors that were on her face and kind of open up the skin tones a little bit. And then looking at this final image, the adjustments that I made here, I would probably just suggest softening the background, maybe painting on the foreground to even out the coloring like I said before. So that would be my take on that. And then as I said, what I did was I went and I just opened up your raw image again, and I went through what I would do for my normal editing process just to kind of give you an idea. Without looking at your edit, I just kind of took it from the beginning. And the way I edit is I go through everything in Lightroom. I import all of my images into Lightroom. I do all of my edits in Lightroom, or not all of them, I do all of my preliminary edits in Lightroom, and then I export that image when I'm ready, and then I do all of my final edits in CS6. So I saw that you were using Elements. I did use Elements for about a year before I switched over to CS6, and there's a lot of similarities. But I do use CS6. So I went through what I did in both of those programs. Just pull up my notes here. Okay, so when I put this image first into Lightroom, I added some warmth to it. This is still the original raw file, but just telling you what I did to it. I added some warmth to it. I reduced the contrast. I reduced the highlights. I increased some still light. I did a yellow shift to green, decreased some orange saturation, decreased some yellow saturation, increased the green saturation, and also increased the orange and yellow luminance. Once I did that, then I put it into CS6, and I'm going to pull up what my final edit was, and this is it. And what I did here was I did probably about, it looks like a handful, maybe 4 actions that I ran on it, and then the rest I did were all kind of my own edits. And I ran an action from Paint the Moon. This is from the gray set. It was light and airy, and all that, I ran it low at about 25%. And all that did was kind of brighten it up a little bit, and you could use any sort of brightening tool to do that. Then I ran another one, which was called Opulence from Paint the Moon's Grace collection. I like this action because there's a ton of layers. I actually went in and I ended up turning most of the layers off. I tend to really only want to run actions that have a lot of layers because, like I told you, I kind of jump around. I try things, turn it on, turn it off. So I kind of like to play around and see different things. And the main purpose of what this action did, just to let you know, is all it really ends up doing was kind of create a spotlight on the center of the image, and then it created sort of like a matted vignette. So it helped to decrease some of those highlights and some of the blackened parts up in the trees. It kind of toned that down as well. I ran another action that just kind of, if you can kind of see on the edges, it just softened the edges. And then I ran from a Paint the Moon Luminance collection, I added Earth and Ruby vignette, which kind of just creates a little bit of a reddish hue around the edge of the image. Then for my own, I added a pink warming mask to kind of give it some pink tones. I did a color balance just on the subject, so I kind of went through that little balance. And maybe, I can't remember exactly what I did, but I probably took a little bit of the yellow off and maybe took a little bit of the red down. I sharpened just the subjects. I darkened the overall image. I brightened the whiteness of her shirt. I did selective color saturation, so I just kind of masked it onto her, the heart on her hat and the shoes with what I wanted to pop again. And then what I did was I took my paintbrush and I selected a green that I liked in the grass, and I painted, literally painted on the image. All around here I painted green on the image to kind of even that out. So I'm going to pull up and just kind of show you what I mean when I say I evened that out. So we have your edit here. And then what I did was I kind of tried to, where you see some of this color, I kind of tried to just even it out a little bit and just get it so that it wasn't maybe quite as much of a distraction. So basically that would be, my editing would be, the whole point of it would be to just tone down, I think, any sort of distraction so that the main focus of the image was just on the two of them together so that you can really see their interaction. Again, I tried to eliminate some of the distraction that was in the trees, even out the green here so that we don't have as much competing color tones kind of going on. Okay, so that is that image. And let me pull up the next one. I hope I'm doing okay on time. It looks like I've already kind of exceeded our 10 minutes. I don't see if I don't have any messages telling me to stop. Okay. Okay, so for this next one, this is your raw image. And I love backlighting. So I'm always a fan of backlighting, and I think that's awesome that you said you're just kind of starting to play around with it. I always like the highlight it creates behind the hair, and I like the highlight it's created behind the hair here. I love how she's looking down. I love how, you know, her hat is positioned. As far as the image itself, some suggestions that I would make. For one, I would want to see her hands. I think it is kind of a distraction to me where it looks like they're kind of cut off a little bit. So I know it's tough because of the dress she's wearing and because of it being a maternity shot, and you know, maybe to try to see if she could maybe push the dress down a little bit in front, or maybe raise her hands higher so that they were even sitting on top of the belly, just one way so that they were there in the picture. The other thing that I would want to try to conquer would be the ground behind her that's kind of sloping on an angle. I know it's tough because she's actually sitting straight, so that's the problem, is when you go to try to straighten that line behind her, it ends up making her tilted. So the best thing to do would be to just kind of straighten her, so you would have to shoot at a different angle. And I know that's kind of tricky. I deal with that a lot when I'm at the beach and I'm doing with the horizon line, because they're sitting straight. It's really not much you can do with it other than just kind of reposition them. And the haze is, I mean, it's a lot. It's a difficult task to try to conquer through all of that to bring back the details in her face. So typically I would try to eliminate, you know, I mean, you want to keep it, you still want that haze there, but try to eliminate enough of it that you still have features in her face. So I would try a different angle, maybe try to position the sun behind a tree so that only a part of the sun is coming and only creating some of the haze. So here is your edit. And I love, you know, again, I love the warmth. I love the warmth that you put into your images. I love the softness that's created here. I love the feeling in this image. The only thing that I think is missing is, you know, we lose a lot of the details on her face. So that would be my main goal. So these would be my Lightroom adjustments that I made in Lightroom to your edited image. And the main goal was just to kind of bring back some of her features. So what I did in Lightroom, I increased the contrast by about 35. So I did up the contrast in this image. I increased the blacks by bringing that to about -71. So I really did want to up the blacks in this image, and that kind of helped create some of that. I increased the clarity a lot. I increased the clarity plus 37. So that is another thing that kind of helped bring out some of the detail in her face. I increased the luminance on red, orange, and green to kind of add some light into those colors to make her skin pop. And I decreased the luminance on yellow to kind of try to make that yellow in the background a little, I guess, more substance and a little bit less light there. And okay, so that would be a little bit more with her face. But you see, I mean, it's not a drastic change. It's just a few minor changes in Lightroom to get that. And then my start to finish edit is this one. And my main focus, again, was on her skin tone and her face. In Lightroom, I did add some warmth. I did decrease slightly the exposure. I increased the contrast a lot, similar to what I did in the last image. I increased the highlights. I decreased a little bit of still light. I increased the white, added some black. I increased the clarity plus 40, so I upped that a lot again to kind of bring that detail out. I increased the yellow saturation. I decreased the yellow luminance, and I increased the green luminance. And then I exported it into Photoshop CS6. And what I did there was I used from the Paint the Moon Grace collection, Paint On Apricot Light, which is just a brush that paints on kind of orangish light in the back, and I used that to kind of fill in some of the fill light in the back. Oh, I did obviously also crop the image. I preferred the wider shot, like what you had. I only cropped it really because of my time constraints as far as being able to clone all that back in the background. So to show you what I mean, where that line went, I would have preferred a wider image, but just for my editing purposes, I cropped that in. And I did the same thing before where I added the softness, the border. That was a little bit of a softness to kind of soften the edges. And I also used from Paint the Moon Luminosity collection something called Spot Color Doctor that helps even out the skin tone. You could do that, on your own without the action. Any of these could obviously be done without an action, but for that one, just to let you know, you could create a separate layer, put it on color mode, and then kind of match the color that way. And then for my own edits, I added again, another pink warming mask like I did to the last image. It's just a warming mask, and then I changed the color tone to pink. I did add color to her lips and her cheek to try to make that pop as well. And I did brush on a little bit of green to even and soften the grass like I did to the last image. And I ran a color balance for the entire image. So a lot of those are very similar to how I edited the last image. That's usually kind of my style, is to kind of focus on those things. I like to even out the background and the foreground. So to kind of just give you an idea of where I went with that, pulling up your edit. And I did actually, it looks like I did go even warmer on this one. But I think the minor thing that I was looking to do was just to bring out her skin tone, add some warmth and color to her skin tone, and some of those details on her face. And one way I did that was, adding the color to her lips and cheek as well. But I think a lot of what made the difference was some of the Lightroom adjustments in this image. So that would be my suggestions there. But overall, I do love the image, and I'm glad that it's an image that, despite having all that haze, I think it was able to be worked with and to be saved. But I do, as I said, prefer the crop that you have here on that image. Okay, and then for the final image, I think this is a great shot. This is Pulitzer Raw. He looks great. He looks happy. It's a headshot. It captures exactly what it should be. As far as any critiques on the image itself, I don't really have any. I did notice on the raw image that I received, it actually looked like the focus, I think, is this the raw one I received? The focus was more kind of on the eyebrows, and the mouth was not as in focus. But it looks like the one that you edited was a slightly different shot, and that one, the focus looks really, really even. So I think it was a little bit of a different shot. And it looks like when I opened it that maybe the settings were even a little bit different. I think this one was set with a little bit of a wider aperture than this one. So that would have been my suggestion if this was the case, and it looks like you had already done that with the follow-up shot. So that looks great. As far as the black and white, You know, I mean, it's hard. This is a great black and white. My own adjustments are not very far off. You know, I did this. I don't even think this. I'm not sure if this was even an adjustment on your image or just how I would do the black and white, but they're really similar. You know, it's a tough black and white to critique because with a headshot, you know, you're limited creatively in what direction you can go in because you want to maintain the integrity of the image and the person that's there. You know, an image that maybe has a lot going on in the background or a lot of sun, or that's where I think black and white gets a little bit trickier when you're dealing with a lot of kind of high contrast image. But with something like this, you know, I mean, I think this is great, and I think then when I went through, I just kind of sharpened it up a little bit from the one I had done, but there's really not a lot of difference here. So I think that the direction that you went in as far as converting it to black and white was a good choice. I think the only real difference here is I think my background looks like I kind of eliminated a little bit of that distraction, and the one negative to that is you do lose a little bit of the definition between his shirt and the background. But I like the way his kind of face pops a little bit more with the evenness. But I think it's a great shot. So like I said, I had a lot of fun playing with these images, especially, you know, this is the way I like to shoot. I love shooting kind of outdoors in a field. I love shooting moments like this where there's, you know, some sort of emotional connection. So I definitely had a lot of fun with these. And hopefully I was able to give you an idea of my editing process and kind of the direction I would have went, and let you know what I loved about the direction you went, and only, you know, the slight things that I would have changed as far as, you know, the contrast or the skin tone. I think skin tone is a really big factor for me when I'm editing, so that's usually the #1 thing I look for. So I think that was kind of what I focused on in editing both these first two images. You don't really deal with that with the black and white, so that wasn't really an issue. But with these first two images, I think that was what I was kind of looking for the most. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know, and I would love to address those for you. And that's it, so thank you again. All right, bye-bye.